Guys, patience is over. It looks like that some NATO members are actively preparing for war, with at least one of them being extremely dedicated. At the same time, Putin announces a mobilization which is a routine one, once again, quote unquote, so it's like nothing suspicious here. And Ukraine receives security guarantees from more and more countries, including America itself. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And today we go straight to the point and talk immediately about these NATO activities. So, long story short, recently you probably have heard about this, but NATO is organizing one of the biggest military exercises they had since the end of Cold War. And this time, at some rough estimations, up to 90,000 soldiers might participate in those exercises from many different countries. This will also include at least 50 warships, 80 aircrafts, more than 1,000 ground combat vehicles, including 133 tanks. And reportedly, one of the closest military bases which might potentially be used for the purpose of these exercises, the closest to the territory of Russia, I mean, it will be located in Poland. And a lot of Ukrainian soldiers, especially officers who are already receiving combat experience, the real life one, they will be educating NATO soldiers on real life scenarios, how to respond to the Russian aggression. And one of the very first military activities performed during this NATO exercise happened in Italy, Sicily, where a lot of military ships from Turkey, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Greece, Spain, Great Britain, and the United States participated in this naval training, including at least 7 submarines. And speaking about the Nordic countries such as Finland, Norway and Sweden, they did even their own exercises called the Nordic Response 24, and approximately 20,000 soldiers participated in them, including to also 13 different countries. These 3 I just mentioned previously were the main ones. Because Finland is obviously bordering with Russia, it shares approximately almost 1,400 kilometers of the mutual borderline, which makes it also an extremely close NATO-related exercise to the territory of Russia. And by the way, before we go further and before I forget, if you want to see this particular NATO exercise video, the full version of it, in addition to dozens more photos and videos from other military exercises by NATO, all of them can be found on my Patreon, the link is down below. There is 1 week of free access for you to see if you like the series or not, so pretty much doesn't cost you anything to try. And so yes, back to NATO. Since we already mentioned Poland, actually there were already active military training performed not that long time ago. Specifically, NATO members were practicing how to cross Vistula River, which makes me realize, and I guess guys you can agree, let me know in the comments down below. So Kherson right now, the northern part of it to the right side of Dnipro River is liberated by Ukrainians. We already know it. The left side, the southern side of Kherson, is still occupied by Russians. And guess what? These 2 parts are divided by Dnipro River. So this exercise in Poland for NATO to actually learn how to cross rivers most effectively is a very interesting hint for us to see what Ukrainians will be prioritizing in the near future in this Russian-Ukrainian war. And since we also did mention Nordic countries, you already heard this, I'm almost certain, Sweden became the most recent NATO 32nd member, which is like, again, Putin's main goal of this special military operation of Ukraine, not to let NATO expand. Well, it kinda failed again. And if you also think that Putin is failing pretty miserably in achieving his special military operation goals, guys, can you please literally like this video and subscribe to my channel? I will take a look at the statistics just to see if there is a much bigger dominance of us who think exactly the same as a one whole community. You're more than welcome to join to the Russian Dude Army. Once again, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much. So yeah, these are just the military exercises that NATO members are performing right now as we speak. Once again, these are just exercises, but another interesting thing is that the entire narrative of NATO members is also rapidly changing, and fewer of its members, and let's be honest, other countries in the world are no longer afraid of Putin. And one of the most determined NATO members, as once again you probably have heard about, is the country of France, which was literally at some point saying, according to the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, that guys, we are sending troops to Ukraine, I don't care, we need to help Ukraine to win. But more about all of this, let's talk about this right now. So yes, at first, approximately several months ago, it all started with the Prime Minister of France, Gabriel Attal, who said that our country would just simply need to send troops to Ukraine. At that moment it was still kinda very speculative, not that many people took it seriously, but then the narrative once again kept changing. Then the President of France, Emmanuel Macron himself, he just started with that maybe France can send just elite troops, it's Spetsnaz, to Ukraine just to help them protecting at least some territory. So as you can see, not like the entire French army or at least some bigger regiments, but at least some kind of like small, very determined, very goal-oriented elite forces. But then, as the narrative kept escalating, Emmanuel Macron said that okay, France is no longer having any of these red lines which it is not willing to cross. And one of the things he did mention is that France will be sending troops under one, or I would say two conditions. If Russians are breaking the current existing front lines in two places, the first one is Kiev and the second one is Odessa. Then even more and more significant members of NATO, such as America and Germany, also started actively discussing the potential aggression by Russia and what could be their response. Such as, for example, America started to restructure some of its army military elements, and Germany even presented a 4-phase plan of how this potential aggression by Russia can look like. The first phase is that Russians will start launching propaganda and disinformation in the German media and social media, saying that like pretty much destroying the reputation of the German authorities and turning the people of Germany against their leaders. The second phase will be the intensification of cyber attacks by Russian hackers, and then also concentration of forces as close as possible to the borders. And then the third phase will be already active usage of the weapons and munition, such as including even up to metallic cylinders. And the fourth phase of this aggression of Russia against either NATO or Germany, including either specifically Germany, is that Russia will actually break the borders, the front lines, and will actually invade another country. The next NATO member which started to change its narrative was Canada, and according to its Minister of Defense, Canada might put its forces on the territory of Ukraine, but not to take part in active combat activities. Instead, the Canadian instructors will be teaching Ukrainians pretty much how to fight. They'll be trying to teach them the theory of modern warfare. And besides that, NATO as a whole decided to put even more air defense systems closer to the border with Russia, such as, for example, in Lithuania recently an increase in number of Patriot air defense systems has been reported. Later on, even more countries mentioned that they might consider sending its troops to Ukraine, such as countries of Estonia, Lithuania and the Netherlands. And ultimately, the Pentagon, obviously the United States of America, said that in case Russia is victorious in Ukraine, this is when NATO will have to already actively fight against Russia itself. That is why right now it is extremely important to do everything possible to help Ukraine fight against Russia, because it serves as literal wall between NATO countries and Russia itself. And so yes, this was the narrative change. In addition to that, Ukraine also started to receive a lot of security guarantees from many countries, almost literally in a row. One of these first, not the original first countries, but one of the recently first countries which provided these security guarantees was the country of Denmark. Next, these were the countries such as Italy, Canada and the Netherlands, and in addition to the security guarantees, they also started sending more munition, shells and just in general money for financial support to Ukraine, either for the restoration of the country or for the infusion of the military budget. And ultimately, and I would say that all of us assume that eventually this will be coming, Ukraine most likely will be signing the security guarantees with the United States itself. But unfortunately not yet. Most likely it will happen before the next NATO summit, which is supposed to take place in July. So right now obviously there are conversations, there is a dialogue, but not yet security guarantees are signed, at least at the moment of recording this video, but the probability is pretty high. And speaking about the financial support, also recently the European Parliament agreed to send a total of 50 billion euros to Ukraine, and 536 European representatives voted for and only 40 of them voted against. And so, to sum it all up, obviously the main question would be, what is the response by Russia, specifically by Putin? Well, one of the things he did recently is that signed an annual decree to call up reservists for training. Yes, some people might say this is some routine call-up, this was a scheduled one, there is nothing extraordinary about this, but when you do read the articles and when you do hear the statements that Ministry of Defense of Russia makes, they always so much emphasize this is just a routine, this is just annual, don't worry, like don't be surprised, this is all according to the plan, and you already guys know as soon as Russia is saying something, it proves the opposite. That the opposite is completely true. Whenever they deny that, let's say, so a border or a front line was breached, it means that it actually happened. Whenever they deny that some oil refineries on their territory were destroyed, it actually happened. And now, right now, they're saying, guys, do not be shocked, do not be surprised, it's all routine, it's all annual, it's all scheduled. You get the idea. Even according to one of the earlier reports by the Institute for the Study of Wars, they also do see the tendencies and the, let's say so, internal escalation within Putin's inner circle that most likely he is preparing in one way or another for war, not just against Ukraine, but looks like against some NATO members in Baltic Sea. And obviously right now there is not a single thing we potentially might think about what can trigger this massive escalation, until once again we start reading some Russian news. So thankfully I do read the Russian news, I try to get the both sides of the same story. And so this is basically what happened. This is something what probably was not even talked about in the Western media at all, but hear me out. Putin cancelled a law or order, I don't know how to call it. So Putin cancelled a law from 1956 which allowed the British sailor to fish in Barents Sea, which is like, I guess, so how is this related? And this is how it is. So Putin will try to find any excuse to start military activities against NATO, and then maybe, just maybe, some kind of either Russian diversion group or Russian collaborators, whatever, like Russian sailors dressed as British ones, they will be fishing fish in the Barents Sea, and then Russian submarine or Russian naval military ship will intercept them, and apparently it will turn out that they will have some kind of plans about the installation of the nuclear devices or installation of torpedo launchers. I have no idea, but Putin can potentially use this as an excuse to escalate the situation with NATO. It might sound insignificant right now, it might sound ridiculous right now, but why would Putin care about cancelling, why would Putin care about not letting British people to fish in Barents Sea, which they did since 1956, literally out of nowhere? Why this decline, why this cancellation of this order is so specific? Guys, please let me know in the comments, what do you think? And I just want to end everything with a very controversial and interesting statement from the Prime Minister of Hungary, Mr. Orbán, who said that Hungary, or at least him specifically, does not believe in Ukrainian victory in this Russian-Ukrainian war, but Hungary is concerned for its safety and it does not want to have to share any border with Russia. So, like, Ukrainians, you're gonna lose, but we hope you're gonna win. Well, you interpret this statement however you want, guys. So yes, that's the current state of affairs between Russia, NATO and Ukraine. And guys, please subscribe to my channel, I will keep making these daily updates, and in case something huge happens, I want you to stay informed. Thank you so much, patrons, for your support. Go ahead and check Patreon if you're not yet subscribed, and see you next time.